Hey everybody, Chris Peters here with another scouting report for the 2023 NHL Draft, and we are focusing on the number one prospect in our most recent FloHockey Final NHL Draft rankings. That, of course, is Connor Bedard of the Regina Pats. So Connor Bedard, we've talked about him all year. There's not a whole lot left to say. I mean, this is a guy that had 194 points when you combine all competitions this season, 90 goals scored, and just an absolutely remarkable draft campaign. One of the best we've ever seen. But what makes Connor Bedard so special? Why have we talked about him so much? What is it that he has done? And of course, you look through all of the different things that he does, and he does pretty much everything well. He's not the biggest player at 5'10". He's not the heaviest, but he's gotten stronger. He's made himself better. He's made himself physically more difficult to play against. But it's all about the skill with Connor Bedard and all about his ability to score goals. And as you'll see in a number of the clips that we're playing with this video, this is a guy with one of the best shots in hockey anywhere, not just in the draft class, anywhere. Already one of the elite shooters in hockey. He is probably the best natural goal scorer to enter the NHL draft since Alex Ovechkin. Now that's high praise, and you think about different guys that have come in. Steven Stamkos, Austin Matthews. The way that Connor Bedard played this season, I think it's fair to say that he is a generational goal-scoring talent. Now, we've talked about Connor McDavid as a generational player, and I think that is still true. Sidney Crosby is a generational player. The question of whether or not Connor Bedard is a generational player is kind of fraught with a lot of different qualifiers. You look at Connor McDavid and he's an elite skater, whereas Connor Bedard is a very good skater, but maybe not the elite top-end speed of a guy like McDavid. Sidney Crosby is the ultimate competitor on top of being supremely skilled, and maybe that's where Bedard fits a little bit better just because he doesn't have that otherworldly skating ability that McDavid does that separates him from just about every other player on the planet. But what Bedard does better than anybody his age and better than most players currently playing in the NHL is shoot the puck. He does it in a variety of different ways. He can shoot off the rush. He can shoot off the pass. He can shoot. He can score from in tight. He scores a lot of goals from distance. He has the hands to beat a goaltender one-on-one. Has the hands to beat defensemen one-on-one to get a little bit more space. And this is a guy with just one of the simply best releases that we've ever seen. And that's like all of us. And I'm not just talking about me. I'm talking about many of us that have watched hockey for a long time and have never really seen a player shoot the puck with the accuracy, the velocity, the quickness, all of those things that Connor Bedard does. But to be a great goal scorer, you can't just have a good shot. You can't have, even if you have an elite shot, it doesn't necessarily matter. What you can do, though, is think the game at a high level, which is what Connor Bedard does. And that's probably the big separator. Offensively, he's super creative. He knows how to beat defenses. He knows how to get to the interior. He's also a good passer. He makes a lot of smart plays. It's not always a shoot-first mentality that a lot of goal scorers possess. That's another thing that makes him special in that regard, is that Connor Bedard is always looking for the best option, whether it's for himself or for a teammate or whatever will allow his team to score most efficiently. And being able to spot those plays, being able to see those plays is really what makes him additionally special offensively on top of being an elite goal scorer. Another thing that I think is really important to note about Connor Bedard and the way that he plays is the competitive drive that he plays with. And that's where I see a lot of those little Crosby-ish elements in his game. Sidney Crosby has this will to win, and he fights for every puck. And he's not necessarily the biggest player. He is bigger than Connor Bedard. But he's able to do things with strength, with tenacity, with competitiveness, with a little bit of meanness at times. And that's what Connor Bedard has figured out as well. I think this season, above all, he showed his lower body strength, his ability to battle through checks, his ability to fight through players is a special quality that he has. And that allows him to have more success offensively because he doesn't just have to beat players with skill. He can beat them with that work ethic. He can hold players off. He can protect the puck with his body. And doesn't have that big frame, but what he has is just a really special trait of just never willing to give up on anything. I think he engages physically very well. While he's not going to knock a lot of guys off their feet, he is going to prevent them from getting the ice that they want because he's sturdy enough, and he's kind of built a little bit more like a bulldog the way that he plays. And you know, I think when we talk about him, the only concern really is the size, because there aren't a lot of centers in the NHL that play center at his size. Most centers are in the 6 foot, 6'1", 6'2", and higher range, whereas Connor Bedard is more in that 5'10", 5'11" range, and there is a bit of a gap there. But I don't think he's going to be a wing. I do think he's going to be a center. I think that it's all he's ever been. It's what he does best. We have seen him play wing at the World Juniors and have success in that position. I think he could potentially do that early on in his NHL career, but long term, I think he is going to be a center. Now, we know the Chicago Blackhawks have the first overall pick, and that is going to be something that really can change their franchise just after moving on from some of their most notable players, Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews. So Connor Bedard is going to be able to come in, and the expectations are going to be higher for him than they've been for just about anybody this side of Connor McDavid. And Connor McDavid came in, made an immediate impact. He did deal with an injury in his rookie season that prevented him some games. But I think we're looking at Connor Bedard being a Calder Trophy favorite, a guy who could score upwards of 30 goals in his first season, maybe even more. Who knows? You know, the way that he scores, and if he gets surrounded by the right players, that's the level of impact that we're expecting. Long term, I think we're looking at a number one center, a perennial all-star, a player that is going to score at a high rate, a player that is going to be as effective in the playoffs as he is in the regular season because of that competitive drive. I don't know, I don't want to project him out to be a historic goal scorer. We say sometimes this guy's a future Hall of Famer, and he very well may be, but that's a lot of expectation to put on a 17-year-old. The thing about Connor Bedard is he has not shrunk from this spotlight that he's been under. He has the potential to be a real superstar in the game. And while he isn't outwardly have that superstar behavior, he's done a lot of other things that show that he can handle the pressure that's facing him. Throughout this season, he never shied away from an interview. He never shied away from an autograph session. He certainly has his pregame quirks and different things that he does like that, but he has always been able to be accessible both to the media, to the players, and that can be an exhausting thing on top of being a hockey player. And you think about the season that he had. The Regina Pats were not a top-tier team in junior hockey. Connor Bedard made them a must-watch team on his own. Now, they did have some other really good players on the roster, but Connor Bedard is the reason that so many people flocked to WHL buildings throughout this year. And the thing that I love most about Connor Bedard, aside from the offense and aside from everything else, is that there was so much noise around him. You shouldn't go to Regina. You should get traded. They should trade you. They should put you in another place. And he said, no, I don't want to move. And he very nearly brought them through the first round of the playoffs on his own. He had 20 points in the playoffs this year in 7 games. Got his team to the brink of, moving on to the second round. It was the first time he'd ever played in the playoffs in the WHL, and here he was. And of course, he had that historic World Junior Championship, which we'll never forget. 23 points at the World Juniors, a Canadian record, and not far off from Peter Forsberg's all-time record of single tournament points. And that was back when goalies were a lot smaller and not quite as good as they are now. Yet Connor Bedard managed to do it. He scored an overtime goal in the quarterfinals against Slovakia that helped propel Canada to that. They win the gold medal. He's got 2 World Junior gold medals already. He's got an under-18 World Championship gold medal. And though he didn't win at the WHL level, he certainly did everything within his power to give his team a chance. And that's what he's going to face now in Chicago. There's a long rebuild ahead for the Blackhawks. It is going to take some time, and Connor Bedard alone will not plug all of the holes. There's a lot of work to be done. But he is a special player. He is going to be a difference maker. He's a franchise centerpiece, a building block, a foundational piece, whatever you want to call him. He is going to change the face of the future of the Chicago Blackhawks, and very well could change the face of the future of the NHL. There are few players like him. He's one of the most special players that we've tracked, and certainly that I've tracked since I've been doing this. I cannot wait to see what he looks like in an NHL uniform. I cannot wait for his rookie season, because as a junior hockey player, I have never seen anybody dominate quite like I saw Connor Bedard do this season. Special player, special talent, and the number 1 pick, and certainly number 1 on our final draft rankings, which you can read at FloHockey.tv. Thanks for tuning in for this Connor Bedard scouting report. Stay tuned for much more coming from your friends at FloHockey.